If you and your partner don't believe in contraceptives, or you just need a big car to transport many people, this might be right up your alley. Hi guys, Eric here and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be having a look at this 2016 Volkswagen T6 Kombi 2-litre TDI 75 kilowatt. I actually grew up with a T3 Caravelle 2.5, so the nostalgia is real. What is the reality though? If you live in the Western Cape and you have an original car in good condition you would like me to review, please get in touch. There's an email address in the description box below. The Kombi, also known as the Type 2 and Transporter, has a vast and illustrious history. It all started in 1950 with the T1. It began production in 1950 and continued until 1967 in Germany and 1996 in Brazil as the T1.5. Engine power ranged from 18 to 30 kilowatt, so not a Porsche 911 bus. The 30 kilowatt engine was also very rare. It is known for its split windscreen, or splitty as it is lovingly known. The twin glass windscreen was more than an aesthetic design choice though. It really helped with aerodynamics. Rear door mechanisms changed in 1964 from hinges to optional sliding doors we still get today. The second generation Type 2, also called the T2, started production in August 1967 and ended only in 2013 when Brazil ceased production. The T2 lost the split windscreen in favor of a single piece of wraparound glass. The engine also grew from a 1.2 to a 1.6 litre air-cooled flat 4, producing 35 kilowatt. This was needed as the T2 let go of itself a bit and grew fatter as well as heavier. Thankfully, during its lifespan, power and engine size grew along with it, from 1.6 to 2 litres and 35 kilowatt to 60. This was the first generation to receive an automatic transmission, the first to get fuel injection, and the first to receive front disc brakes. The T3 replaced the T2's rounded feminine corners with a more angular, boxy design in 1979. It also grew in size as well as weight. Interestingly, power from the 1.6 litre and 2 litre air-cooled 4-cylinder engines didn't provide much in the way of power, were a bit unreliable and complicated to make. So, in 1983, all engines were replaced with Wasserboxer, or water-cooled boxer engines. You had a choice of 1.9 and 2.1 displacements, with power ranging from 41 to 83 kilowatt. There was also 3 inline 4-cylinder diesel engines with power ranging from 37 to 51 kilowatt. In South Africa, the T3 continued production until 2002. In 1991, it had a facelift, with some cosmetic changes and new powertrains in the form of Audi 5-cylinder units. Power ranged from 90 to 100 kilowatt. 2 trim lines were offered, Microbus and Caravelle. You also had a choice of 2 or 4-wheel drive, with the all-wheel drive version being dubbed the Synchro. There was also an entry-level bus called the Volksbus, with a carbureted 1.8 litre Golf engine. What is amazing is that up until 2002, the T1, 2 and 3 were produced in South Africa's Uitenhage factory. The T4 was the first Kombi to be imported. It was also a radical shift from its predecessor. The engine moved from the rear to the front, as did the drivetrain. The T4 therefore had a stub nose, which I personally never really liked. It also became more luxurious inside. There was a wide range of 4, 5 and 6-cylinder petrol engines, accompanied by naturally aspirated and turbocharged diesel mills. The power range was massive, from 45 kilowatts and 127 newton meters for the entry-level diesel to 150 kilowatts and 245 newton meters for the VR6. The T4 model is much more rare locally, as it had a short production run. The T5 was launched internationally the same year as the T3 ended production in Eitenacher. It looked fairly similar to the T4 that came before it, with slightly updated power plants and the addition of the Sport line. Power ranged from 62 to 173 kilowatts, and you had a wide range of petrol and diesel engines. The T5 was facelifted in 2009 and received a new twin-turbo 4-cylinder diesel engine. The T6 was made available to the public in 2015. It is based on the same platform as the T5, but was heavily updated. All 5-cylinder engines were phased out to be replaced by more economical 4-cylinder petrol and diesel engines. Power from the diesel engine ranged from our test unit 75 kilowatts all the way up to 150. This is the most attractive front-engined Kombi in my opinion. I like its sharp lines and wide track. It looks much more engaging than the Mercedes-Benz Vito, and even though this is the entry-level Kombi spec, you get body-painted door handles and bumpers. No alloys though. The fuel filler cap is just behind the passenger door. I like how it's neatly hidden. I also like this chrome strip that runs the entire width of the front, from headlight to headlight. It gives it a premium look that you expect from VW, especially considering the price they demand. What is it like on the inside? There is a definite difference between the T6 Kombi and a conventional car. The most apparent is the sheer amount of space in here, particularly headroom. There are tons of it. Then there's the floor plan. It just looks like a flat surface with some seats and a dashboard bolted onto it. Yet it looks extremely neat. I just love how the T6 reminds you of a normal car, yet at the same time looks so much different. The interior follows the same design language as those of other VWs, meaning that everything is ergonomically very well laid out, and the fascia looks uncluttered. The gear lever sticks out of the dashboard itself because there isn't really a center console to speak of. Like most interiors from Germany, it does look a tad bland and serious, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Also, the two-tone plastics do a great job of lifting the cabin. So let's see what the Kombi is all about, starting with the door panel. Well, because the T6 is so tall, the door panel is absolutely huge and heavy, but in a good way. Just like the dashboard, it reminds you a bit of a normal car's door, but there are some key differences. For instance, this window is absolutely huge and sits rather low down. The window switches sits on top of the door panel, and the door's grab handle is above the door handle. Sadly, there aren't any premium materials present. Even the door handle is made out of unpainted black plastic. However, the light beige does a great job of keeping the door from looking drab. It is also very practical. You get a huge door pocket as well as another compartment that is perfect for your wallet and your phone. I just wish that it was lined with a felt or rubberized material to help mitigate rattles. The switches for the electric front windows and electric mirrors offer decent dampening and resistance, if not exactly at the same level as a Passat or Golf. The doors close with a very Germanic thud. But because of this big open space, this does result in a rather tinny and hollow noise echoing around the cabin. The steering wheel in the T6 is extremely basic. Its rim is polyurethane and there are no buttons nor silver accents to help lift it. The only shiny bits are the VW logo and its surrounds. Thankfully, the column is adjustable for rake as well as reach, and the stalks feel premium and are really easy to understand. Moving to the dials, well, they look great. White digits on a black background and red needles. It does a great job of looking simple without being too boring. I really like how the speedometer increases by increments of 10 kilometers an hour until you hit 60. Then it increases to increments of 20. It gives you the illusion of accelerating much faster than you actually are. Between the two analog dials, you will find a monocolor blackout LCD display, much like the one you will find in the previous generation VW Polo. It displays a digital clock, trip information, outside temperature, service intervals, total distance traveled, as well as a digital fuel gauge. However, you don't get a temperature gauge, which is quite an important omission in my opinion. The monocolor stereo unit that sits in between the two center air vents is really easy to navigate thanks to the many shortcut buttons and an LCD screen that is slightly bigger than most. It is also very well equipped with USB input, an auxiliary port, an SD card slot, as well as Bluetooth audio. You don't get a CD player, but when was the last time you actually bought a CD? The standard fit sound system is adequate for the passengers up front, but as you move back it becomes softer and more muted. There are no speakers for the rear passengers, so yelling "shotgun" will become a very important part of any trip. Below the stereo unit you will find the VW's manual climate control panel. This panel is definitely a step up from some other manual air conditioning units. The dials that operate the temperature and airflow gives you the impression of being in a much more upmarket vehicle. The seats in the Kombi are quite basic. They are comfortable and offer good support, but don't provide much in the way of side bolstering. I am, however, very happy to see that the driver gets 2 adjustable armrests, as it makes a huge difference in finding a comfortable driving position. I just wish that the front passenger seat was afforded the same treatment. With the design part out of the way, let's talk practicality. Storage solutions for the front passengers are excellent. You have access to a very big, well-dampened glove box, 2 tray areas above the glove box opening, another bigger compartment that is slanted in slightly to help keep things in place, and a passenger cup holder that is both wide and deep and is situated at the very top of the dash. Moving to the center console, you have a huge multi-level tray, a small space next to the 12-volt socket, as well as a bigger compartment underneath it. The driver gets their own cup holder as well, and a small space underneath the driver's air vent. Then there is the aforementioned very usable door pockets. Very impressive. What about passengers sitting in the second row? Well, they will be very happy with the amount of space. Knee and headroom is excellent. There are also 3 full-sized seats, which means that 3 adults can sit abreast without any issues. They also get their own climate vents as well as climate control and an integrated sunshade, a boon for a hot climate like ours. What they don't have is storage spaces whatsoever, not even a cup holder, and there aren't any armrests either. Unlike most 7-seater MPVs and SUVs in our market, there's actually enough space here for an average size adult. The best seat back here definitely is the center, as you can slide your feet underneath the seat in front of it. Third row passengers also get their very own climate vents, as well as integrated sunshades like those in the middle. Sadly, the only storage space the third row gets is a single ashtray on the left-hand side. It is also quite tricky to get into the third row, mostly because of the mechanism of the seat in front of it. Because the Kombi is so tall, the boot is a gigantic 1,200 litres. Expanding on that storage though is rather tricky, mostly because the rear bench is one piece and rather heavy. Still, when it's folded away, the boot is enormous. One thing to keep in mind though is that the boot door is really big, so be sure to leave the garage door open before you attempt to open it. Considering its massive size, you would be forgiven for thinking that it would be almost impossible for an average driver to pilot the Kombi. But it hides its size fairly well. You have a great view out thanks to a high driving position and excellent visibility all around. So it's actually quite easy to navigate narrow streets and make turns. What can be a chore though is parking, especially when you're not used to the length of the T6. You don't get park distance control or a reversing camera either. This can result in a fairly stressful parking process. What isn't that great is the power coming from the engine. It feels rather weak, so weaving in and out of lanes during rush hour traffic does require some forward planning. Out on the twisties, and you can immediately tell that the Kombi is out of its comfort zone. The steering is really light and lifeless, and because of the high center of gravity, there is quite a bit of body roll. So this isn't the ultimate mountain pass stormer. It was never meant to be one. Out on the open road, and the T6 holds its own. The suspension is soft and pliant, and because of the great driving position, you get a great view out. The weak engine though does mean that you need a lot of serious forward planning when you want to overtake at speed, especially when all 8 seats are occupied with passengers. Lastly, like most van-shaped cars, there's quite a bit of road noise and tire roar that's echoing around the vast cabin. Still, forgive its size and work around its performance and passenger storage shortcomings, and you'll be rewarded with a reliable, attractive and practical people mover that is filled to the brim with nostalgia. You even get a fancy badge up front. Well done, Volkswagen. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the review, remember to give it a thumbs up as it makes the world of difference to my channel. Speaking of which, if you haven't already, remember to subscribe and be notified of upcoming reviews. I have loads more coming up for you guys, so stay tuned. If you're interested in some behind the scenes footage and maybe a peek into my personal life, be sure to follow me on my social media platforms. Links are in the description box below. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Until next time. Bye.